Hey, okay, so we are going to be in lesson 2. So we did start reading chapter 1. We did not finish, but we did begin reading chapter 1 of The Giver. We have begun to break down some word meanings and look at the connotations with those words, thinking, do I associate that word positively? Do I have a negative connotation? What am I feeling? And that's the kind of thing that Jonas was doing as he was trying to decide, how does he feel about what's coming in December? And if you'll remember, he chose the word apprehensive, and we had a discussion about that as to why does he feel that way and what does that mean. You were asked also to write and describe the community that Jonas lives in, and how is that community different from the one that you live in. And there are quite a lot of differences. And we're going to just kind of peel back that, there's layers of differences that we're going to discover. I only wish I could spend 30, 45 minutes on this video just to, I can't. But we are going to finish chapter 1 today. We're going to continue to make inferences, read between the lines about the community that Jonas is in, and that's the setting, that's that setting, and based on the characters and the way they interact. So I would like you to follow along as I pick up reading with page 6. Who wants to be the first tonight for feelings? Am I not straight? Okay. Jonas's father asked at the conclusion of their evening meal. It was one of the rituals, the evening telling of feelings. Sometimes Jonas and his sister Lily argued over turns, over who would get to go first. Their parents, of course, were part of the ritual. They too told their feelings each evening. But like all parents, all adults, they didn't fight and wheedle for their turn. Nor did Jonas tonight. His feelings were too complicated this evening. He wanted to share them, but he wasn't eager to begin the process of sifting through his own complicated emotions, even with the help that he knew his parents could give. You go, Lily, he said, seeing his sister, who was much younger, only a 7, wiggling with impatience in her chair. I felt very angry this afternoon, Lily announced. My childcare group was at the play area, and we had a visiting group of 7s. And they didn't obey the rules at all. One of them, a male, I don't know his name, kept going right to the front of the line for the slide, even though the rest of us were all waiting. I felt so angry at him, I made my hand into a fist like this. She held up a clenched fist, and the rest of the family smiled at her small, defiant gesture. Why do you think the visitors didn't obey the rules? Mother asked. Lily considered and shook her head. I don't know. They acted like animals, Jonas suggested. He laughed. That's right, Lily said, laughing too. Like animals. Neither child knew what the word meant exactly, but it was often used to describe someone uneducated or clumsy or someone who didn't fit in. Now, this is on card 5 of 9 if you were to look at Learn Zillion on lesson 2 of the Giver. It says, discuss with a partner what is surprising about this conversation. Right. It's the fact that they don't know what animals are. Because it says, if you go back to the text, neither child knew what the word meant exactly. And if they don't know what the word animals means exactly, I mean, we could ponder on that for a good 15 minutes. There's so many animals in our world. And just to think about the creatures, the birds, the fish, you know, that's how much time do people spend hunting, fishing, you know? And to think that these kids know nothing about animals. Okay, that's not a world like we're used to whatsoever. So this is hard to comprehend here. But it still says they use the word to describe someone uneducated or clumsy, someone who didn't fit in. What can you conclude about Jonas's community given these details? Yeah. Something. If there's no animals, do you wonder what took place? This is somewhere down the road. As far as setting, if there's no animals on the planet, what happened to our world that we lost our animals? And evidently they're still, you know, we're pretending, okay, but we're going to go with it and think logically. What could have happened? Possibly. That's one question. Anyway. But so we're going to go back to the text though, at this point. She said they were acting like animals, and we do know that we respect many animals and we love our animals, our horses, and we thank God for animals. I mean, those of you that love the things that we eat, you know, milk and drink and things, they're definitely a blessing to our world. But we also say, like, you animal, you know, we do know that that this is a fairly accurate description to some extent, knowing that an animal cannot be educated, that animals are many times clumsy, and they don't rightly fit in with society. Okay, so anyway, the point is, she was so angry at this other male that she didn't know his name because she felt like he was acting like a description of what would be an animal. So where were back to towards the bottom of page 7, where were the visitors from? Father asked. Lily frowned, trying to remember. Our leader told us, and I'm going to interject, our leader told us when he made the welcome speech, but I can't remember. Does something stand out to you about that? When she says, when she answers her father with "our leader told us"? Okay. We don't have a name for that leader. And have you picked up on how they're referring to the parents? Mother, father, very formal language, not mom, dad, mama, daddy. And do we know their name at this point? No, not yet. Okay. It was from another community. They had to leave very early and they had their midday meal on the bus. So wherever these people came from, they traveled quite a little while. Mother nodded. Do you think it's possible that their rules may be different, and so they simply didn't know what your play area rules were? Lily shrugged and nodded. I suppose. You visited other communities, haven't you? Jonas asked. My group has often. Lily nodded again. When we were 6s, we went and shared a whole school day with a group of 6s in their community. How did you feel when you were there? Lily frowned. I felt strange because their methods were different. They were learning usages that my group hadn't learned yet. So we felt stupid. Father was listening with interest. I'm thinking, Lily, he said, about the boy who didn't obey the rules today. Do you think it's possible that he felt strange and stupid? Being in a new place with rules that he didn't know about? Lily pondered that. Yes, she said finally. I feel a little sorry for him, Jonas said, even though I don't even know him. I feel sorry for anyone who is in a place where he feels strange and stupid. How do you feel now, Lily? Father asked. Still angry? I guess not, Lily decided. I guess I feel a little sorry for him. And sorry I made a fist, Lily grinned. Jonas smiled back at his sister. Lily's feelings were always straightforward, fairly simple, usually easy to resolve. He guessed that his own had been too when he was a 7. He listened politely, though not very attentively, while his father took his turn, describing a feeling of worry that he had that day at work. A concern that one of the new children who wasn't doing well. Jonas's father's title, his job, was nurturer. He and the other nurturers were responsible for all the physical and emotional needs of every new child during its earliest life. It was a very important job, Jonas knew, but it wasn't one that interested him much. What gender is it? Lily asked. Male, Father said. He's a sweet little male with a lovely disposition. Your disposition would be like your demeanor, like just the way you are. I think that's interesting. It's just a baby, but they carefully don't use that word, do they? He isn't growing fast as he should, and he doesn't sleep soundly. So That's two areas of concern for the father as a nurturer. He isn't growing as fast as he should. He doesn't sleep soundly. We have him in the extra care section for supplementary nurturing. But the committee's beginning to talk about releasing him. Oh no, Mother murmured sympathetically. I know how sad that must make you feel. Well, okay. Jonas and Lily both nodded sympathetically as well. Release of new children was always sad because they hadn't had a chance to enjoy life within the community yet, and they hadn't done anything wrong. There were only 2 occasions of release, which were not punishment. Release of the elderly, which was a time of celebration for a life well and fully lived, and release of a new child, which always brought a sense of what could we have done. This was especially troubling for the nurturers like Father, who felt they had failed somehow, but it happened very rarely. Well, Father said, I'm going to keep trying. I may ask the committee for permission to bring him here at night, if you don't mind. You know what the night crew nurturers are like. I think this little guy needs something extra. Of course, Mother said, and Jonas and Lily nodded. They had heard Father complain about the night crew before. It was a lesser job, night crew nurturing, assigned to those who lacked the interest or skills or insight for the more vital jobs of the daytime hours. Most of the people on the night crew had not even been given spouses because they lacked somehow the essential, which is necessary, the essential capacity to connect to others, which was required for the creation of a family unit. Maybe we could even keep him, Lily suggested sweetly, trying to look innocent. The look was fake, Jonas knew. They all knew. Lily, Mother reminded her, smiling, you know the rules. 2 children, 1 male, 1 female, to each family unit. It was written very clearly in the rules. Lily giggled. Well, she said, I thought maybe just this once. Next, Mother, I'm just going to go back and look. Okay. All right. Next, Mother, who held a prominent position at the Department of Justice, talked about her feelings. Today, a repeat offender had been brought before her, someone who had broken the rules before, someone who she hoped had been adequately and fairly punished, and who had been restored to his place, to his job, his home, his family unit. To see him brought before her a second time caused her overwhelming feelings of frustration and anger and even guilt that she hadn't made a difference in his life. I feel frightened too for him, she confessed. You know that there's no third chance. the rules say that if there's a third transgression, he simply has to be released. Jonas shivered. He knew it happened. There was even a boy in his group of 11s whose father had been released years before. No one ever mentioned it. The disgrace was unspeakable. It was hard to imagine. Lily stood up and went to her mother. She stroked her mother's arm. From his place at the table, Father reached over and took her hand. Jonas reached for the other. One by one, they comforted her. Soon she smiled, thanked them, and murmured that she felt soothed. The ritual continued. Jonas, Father asked, "Your last tonight?" Jonas sighed. This evening, he almost would have preferred to keep his feelings hidden. But it was, of course, against the rules. You couldn't keep your feelings hidden. "I'm feeling apprehensive," he confessed, glad that the appropriate descriptive word had finally come to him. "Why is that, son?" His father looked concerned. "I know that there's really nothing to worry about," Jonas explained, "and that every adult has been through it. I know you have, Father, and you too, Mother, but it's the ceremony that I'm apprehensive about. It's almost December." Lily looked up, her eyes wide. "The ceremony of 12? She whispered in an awed voice. Even the smallest children, Lily's age and younger, knew that it lay in the future for each of them. "I'm glad you told us of your feelings," Father said. "Lily," Mother said, beckoning to the little girl, "go on now and get into your night clothes. Father and I are going to stay here and talk to Jonas for a while." Lily sighed, but obediently she got down from her chair. "Privately?" she asked. Mother nodded. "Yes," she said. "This talk will be a private one with Jonas." That concludes chapter 1. I want you to answer the questions that are at the end, that are on lesson 2. There are actual questions 4, 5, 6, and 7. I will start the next video going over those questions.